This video is to show you how to make the form of a kind of neon look or a neon sign. So there's lots of possible variations that you could create from this technique, and really it's up to you to just explore and experiment. But you can see you can get quite a nice neon effect from it, and so I'm going to take you through the process to come up with something like this and show you the variations along the way. So I'm going to start by opening Illustrator, creating a new A4 document. I'm going to make mine landscape, and then I'm just going to type a piece of typography. So I'm going to use the word sail. Obviously you choose an appropriate word that's going to work for you. And I kind of want to make it as big as I can, but I want to choose the font particularly to match what I'm doing. This is Myriad Pro, and you should really choose a sort of fat font. So scroll through all your fonts and find something you want to work with. I'm going to work with Helvetica. You can do a search as well. So I'm going to look at Helvetica Bold. And then there's also this very, very dense one here. And I'm going to work with the bold version. So I need to just shrink that down a little bit as well. Okay, that's going to give me a really nice plateau to work with. And I'll explain a little bit more about that once we get into Photoshop. So we're going to work between Illustrator and Photoshop. And I just want to take you to have a look at some neon signs. If you look into the sign, you can kind of see neon signs are really gas-filled tubes, so they have a glow inside them, and you'll see they have little notches where they join in to the power from behind. Sometimes there's cabling behind them as well. So all of that is options that you can draw in. What I'm kind of aiming for is a sort of double stroke to create a traditional sort of neon look. But you know, you could also consider objects as well. It doesn't have to be typography. You could work with drawings that you create. And you could create the typography in Photoshop. It's just that I really like to start in Illustrator for something like this. So the next thing that I'm going to do to it is I'm going to flip it over. It's not really the fill that I'm after. It's really the stroke. And I need to change that stroke. So I'm going to open up my stroke panel. Your stroke panel might look like this when you first open it up. Just ask it to show options. And then there's a number of things that we can do. First of all, we can increase the weight. So I'm going to make it pretty fat, but not that fat. So somewhere in between 20 and 40. Let's stick with 20 for the moment. It doesn't look very curvy, and all neon signs are pretty curvy. So what you can do is you can adjust corners here. You can send corners to flat corners, or you can give them nice rounded corners. And then there is another option under Effects, Stylize Round Corners. So this will allow me to visually adjust those corners and actually gives them a more kind of lumpy feeling. So if you want your neon to kind of look like that, use this route. I'm going to just put corners in. The next thing I want to do is I want to just put in some of those little gaps to make it look like it's connected to the wall or connected to a cable in the back. But I can't do it to the text as it stands now. I need to turn it into a graphic. So of course what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Type, Create Outlines. And then I can get in there with the scissor tool. So just zoom in, pick the spot that you would like to cut out, and sometimes you'll need to click twice, and that will be the area that will be cut. Sometimes you might need a little bit more than you think you need. So I'm just going to hit the backspace or delete. And the reason I'm taking a little bit more than I need, I'll show you in a minute. And then it's fairly disorganized. There's not necessarily a set method, but it's usually somewhere near the bottom where it's connected to the system. So I'm just going to cut a few out here. And then what I'm going to do is, now that I've done that, I've got these flat edges, which doesn't look like neon. So I'm just going to select everything. And now I'm going to go to the caps. And this here is similar to corners, only it's for the edge of a path. So if I select rounded corners, you'll see I've now got those gaps. If any of them aren't quite right, so I still haven't cut out enough from that one, I'm just going to zoom in on it and adjust it. So I can either cut another little bit out, or I can just move the final anchor point up a little bit. So just move it, or this one down a bit to add in a little bit of space. And now I'm going to colour this typography. So Windows swatches, and I'm just going to start off with a nice bright red colour. But of course it's the stroke that I want to colour, and I don't want to have a fill. So I'm going to get rid of the fill and just leave it with a nice colour to come through to Photoshop. The final thing I'm going to do to it is just crop it down so that I create an asset out of it, and then I can either save it to Photoshop document, or I can just simply copy and paste it. So I'm going to say to it, artboard, so object artboard, fit to artwork bounds, and then I'm going to save this as an Illustrator document. So I'll create a new folder for this on the desktop. So this is my neon text, neon for sale sign. Okay, so that's an AI document. And if I wanted to, I could I could export as a Photoshop document and just bring it in to Photoshop. So I'm going to do that, Photoshop document. But either way is fine. I could simply just copy and paste it, and I would paste it in as pixels. So I'm going to save that into the same folder. Make sure that you're saving it as art optimized. You've got the option of art and type. It's no longer type, so save it as art, and save it as a high resolution document. In this case, I want it to be really bright, so I want it for the screen, so I'm going to save it to RGB for screen-based work. Now I'm going to close my Illustrator document. So you can see I've got an Illustrator document, and I've exported to Photoshop as well. So either will be fine. I'm just going to drag that into Photoshop, and you can see if I look at the image size, it's a fairly large size, so it's 26.73 across, and it's 300 because of the way I exported it from Illustrator. So that's fine. The only slight problem is that if I'm going to make a neon light and I keep it tight like this, and then I want to put it into another document, I might be doing myself an injustice, because it's so tight that if I've got glows and things happening to it, then I might be cutting off some of the artwork. So what I might do is just extend the artboard a little bit beyond the word sale. I could have done that in Illustrator. So if I open up the Illustrator document, then I could have just asked the artboard to just be a little bit bigger and saved it and exported it with just a bit more depth. So you can create the artboard that you want just simply by dragging the cropping tools, and then you just move into your selection tool, and that's the document that would get saved and exported. But if you haven't done that, back in Photoshop, you can always do it by going to Image, Canvas size. Now, if I do it to the image size, if I extend the image size, then what I'll be doing is the image itself will be expanding to fill the new canvas size. So I go to the canvas size, which is everything in the background. It's the checkerboard, not the artwork. And then if I just ask it to increase, so let's just round it off. I'll go up to 30 on that, and we'll go up to 10 on this, just to give me some space. You can always crop it down later. These indicators, by the way, they allow you to push that extra width or height to one side. So for instance, if I only wanted extra space to the right and down at the bottom, then what I would do is I'd click on top and click the side, click up here, and it would give me that space down here. So you kind of click the opposite place that you want the space to go into. So if I wanted it on the top, I'd click down the bottom here. We want it all the way around, so I'm going to click in the middle, and that just gives me a little bit of extra space. The next thing I'm going to do to it is to create several versions of this layer, okay? So I probably need two copies of it. So I'm just going to do that. You can either duplicate the layer here, or I'm just an old-fashioned girl. I like to just duplicate it by dragging it into the new layer option. And then just name them. So this is my original. Or you could say the background version, just so you know what it is. This is going to be a feathered version. And then this one is going to be a contracted version. And you may not need them all because you may come up with a different plan. But I'm going to talk you through how to work with all of these layers to create the sort of neon look. So the first layer you're going to keep as it is. You might want to change the color of it, and later on we're going to add a glow, but I'll come back to that. The second layer, we're going to radically change the color. So a complementary color or a radically different color inside. And then we're also going to feather that layer. And then the third layer, we're going to contract it and make it much, much smaller to give it a little bit of zing. And it might be that you don't need all of these layers, but you can experiment with that later on. Each layer is going to be a different color. So you could work with color overlays, and or you could just simply reselect the layer and change the color in the layer. So you can use your hue adjustment or fill with a different color. I'll show you the way that I do it, but move on to the next video to see that.